All right, good morning, Uyo. Good morning, Akwa Ibom. But this is Unio 100.7 FM, and you are on a special interview right here on the station. My name is Jimmy Jackson, and I'll be the host for today's interview. In the studio, we are actually playing host to a professor of development communication. Yes, in the Faculty of Arts, University of Uyo, in the person of Professor Ashong Ashong. Professor Ashong holds BA English Education from the University of Calabar, MA Communication Arts, University of Ibadan, PhD in Communication Arts, University of Ibadan, and also is a former ASU chairman at University of Uyo, a former member of the governing council, University of Uyo, a former head of department, head of department, communication arts, a former member of appointment and promotion committee, academic, University of Uyo, a former chairman of Victory Chapel, University of Uyo, a chairman, board of trustees, God's Ambassador Church, Church of God Mission Uyo Akwa Ibom, member of the board of governors, the Redemption Academy Uyo Akwa Ibom State. He's a father, and he's also married to Reverend Mrs. Angela Ashong. He's here with us today in the studio, and yes, he'll be talking to us. So good morning, Professor Ashong, and welcome to you 100.7 FM.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, all right, Prof. I just rolled out your profile right there. So let's start with that. Let's get to know a little bit more about you, where you're from, and a bit of your life history.
Well, that is. I hope I'll be able to give you a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I was born in a very tiny village in Obudu. I'm not sure it's on the map.
Obudu?
Yes, okay. Cross River State, to a reverend gentleman and his beloved wife. He is late now, though my mother is still alive. The third in a series of 9 children, first son. And I started primary school at age 5, at a time when most people didn't go to school that early. Went to secondary school by my 12th birthday, and continued that way through the university until I got here in 1985 as a teaching assistant, or what we call today graduate assistant, and moved through the ranks until I became professor in 2016.
Okay.
I don't know what else you want to know.
Okay, but thank you for that. But quickly, let's look at the challenges you had to, endure to get to this point in your life.
First of all, as I said, my father was a reverend gentleman. Very small income he had, but a man who believed very much in education. And I remember him telling me time and again that even if he had money to build me skyscrapers, he would not really consider that his priority, because according to him, when he left, somebody stronger than me could seize them from me. But that if he gave me a good education, he was sure that nobody would be able to take that from me. And with it, I could become whatever I wanted to be in life. So the first challenge I had was, number one, that resources were limited. And there was a large family. As I said, I was the third in a series of 9 children. So the resources were limited. One had to go to school on very small means. And I remember how difficult it was for my father to be convinced when in 1982, I said to him, I was in year 3 then, my younger brother, my immediate younger brother, who unfortunately is late now, had gained admission to read law. I think he had really desired over the years. And I came home happily to announce the news, only to have my father say, son, it's good news, but he must wait until you graduate. And I said, no, you can't wait. He has to come with me now. And my father said, sorry, I thought you knew that my resources were very lean. And I said to him, sorry, Father, I know that your resources are lean. I have thought through it. I have decided in advance. You don't need to ask. I'm going to try to convince my younger brother. First of all, we are not going to go living the same lifestyles as we see other people living. We are not going to, at best, we will take 2 meals in a day. If we must, we will take one. And we will limit our needs to just our transportation, 1 meal at most, or 2 in a day, and we won't even go for textbooks. We'll use the library. And by the time I spelled it out for him, he still wasn't convinced initially. And I remember having to threaten him for the first time in my life.
You threatened your father?
Yes, I threatened him.
Was that common back then?
No, it was not. I never answered back when he spoke. That it wasn't the vogue then. And that was, I had to use that rare technique because I knew I had to shock him into realization. When I threatened, this was a Wednesday, and I said to him, Papa, as I used to call him then, it wasn't the days of Daddy, I'll be going back to Calabar on Saturday. It's up to you to decide what I do thereafter. If I go with my younger brother, we'll be fine. But if I go back alone, expect me back on Sunday. I'll come back with everything I have in school. It's either we are both going or nobody is going.
Okay.
And he said, how do you mean? I said, well, I'm sorry, but these are the hard facts. I know it's expensive, I know it's difficult for you, but I also know that it's going to get costlier in future. It won't get any cheaper. Secondly, much as I love you very much, I cannot tell how much more time you have left. So imagine that I graduate alone and you leave. By leaving, I meant dying. That would leave me alone to handle all these people that you have. And I will have to raise my own family in addition to all that. That load will be too much for me alone, so I'll need help. Thirdly, the truth of the matter is that admission is not just there for the taking. He had tried this thing earlier and he wasn't getting it. This year that he has, we can't let it go. So we just have to take what we have now. So eventually he had to agree with me. Now that's one challenge that I had. I told you that there were several people, so there were many people. And just as I said, unfortunately, that my younger brother graduated in 1986. My father died in 1990. So he didn't have too much time left. And today, the good news is that as I speak, my youngest brother is doing a PhD. Everybody, no, not in law. That one that I talked about was my immediate younger brother. He died. But the very last of them, who is 19 years younger than I am, is doing a PhD in law. Sorry, not in law, in geology.
All right, Prof, we'll come back to talk about that. But let's look at your family life. Let's talk about your wife. She is a reverend, a known reverend in the state. But let's quickly talk about your family life before we dwell into what we have to discuss today.
Well, family life, you mean my nuclear family?
Yes.
Well, I'm married to one wife, who is a woman. We have 2 biological children. A boy, well, should I call him a boy?
He's a man now.
He's a man now.
Is he married?
Not married yet. That's very private. Because each time I talk to him about being married, he says he's got to settle down properly. He doesn't want
to have everything in the world? Or?
Not everything in the world. He wants to be able to run his affairs without reference to me. He doesn't want to ask me for anything when he needs whatever. I respect his wishes, so I'm not pressing too hard, but I keep nudging at it though. And
I hope he does not threaten you as you did.
No, you know, I told you I never spoke back when my father talked. I had to resort to that very rare technique of threatening him because I knew the essence of that, what I was asking for. And I remember I also said that he believed very much in education, which is why I started primary school at 5 at a time when most people started at 7 or 8. Which is why
because of touching the ear.
And that one, I thought I should reserve that one for the inaugural lecture. That thing about touching the ear, my father had to teach me a technique.
To touch it.
To touch the ear, I had to. Do I say cheat? But I'll demonstrate it at the lecture. I had to touch my ear in a manner that made them accept me, even though I was underage at that time. But then somehow I swam through school. So back to my family. As I said, I have 2 biological children, a boy and a girl. The boy has a master's in the information technology management. Lives in the US now. The girl is a lawyer, just got called to the bar last month.
And she's not married also?
She's not married also. She too, has her own ideas about
marriage.
Getting married.
But
it's not as if they don't want to marry. But I remember her saying that her mate was distributing invitation to marriage, and she screamed and said, "Where is she rushing to? Where is she hurrying to?" and all that. But it's okay.
All right, before we move away, I'm quite interested because I'm actually young, so maybe I could learn from your wealth of experience when it has to do with your children, 2 of them, both not mine. But do you feel any sense of pressure or any sort of pressure with them, and looking at when you guys were actually getting married, the age gap, what's actually happening now and that of your time? Are you a little bit worried looking at the society?
I'm not worried because I believe that certain very important decisions must be left to the individual to take. For instance, getting married, I had warned my parents that they had better be ready for whoever I brought to them because I wasn't going to be caged into, nobody should draw a map for me and say marry from this area or from that area. I wanted the world. And they were very wonderful people. Well, when I want to talk about them, I really don't know whether to use well or because my father is late, my mother is alive. So when I talk to about both of them at the same time, I don't know which one to use. But they understood my inclinations. They understood that I was responsible enough to make my own decisions. So the day I brought my wife, then my fiancée, to show to them, my father shocked me. He used to be extremely meticulous, very questioning, critical of everything, and he would ask you such penetrating questions. If you were not ready for it, you would be in trouble. But I just said, "Papa, this is the young lady I'd like to settle down with." And he didn't ask me one question. He just opened his arms to her and said, "My daughter, welcome home." And that broke my wife like nothing else ever could. She felt so accepted, so loved, that she committed herself to the family, and it shows still today.
All right, Prof, before we move away from family life, let's quickly talk about how you met your wife, because it's a story that at least I've heard somewhere.
It looks like you know something about it. That's why you're asking. Well, my wife was my student. I taught her at the time when I first came. I used to teach use of English, the general course, and which was very useful to me because I got to know so many people. Till today, I meet people who would tell me, "You taught me," and I look at them and said, "I don't remember." They say, "Of course, we were many." And very many indeed. And I'm very proud of many of them, wherever they are. Even yesterday, I met a commissioner who announced to everybody that I taught her when she was in year 1. Now, quite frankly, I don't remember. But I know they are telling the truth. So she was in my class, and I don't know the details of how it all started, but I know that I piqued interest in her.
As your student?
Well, she was my student, but when I decided that she was good enough to be my wife. She had ceased being my student. As I said, it was a
Okay,
year
she
one.
has ceased being your student.
Yes, it was a year one course.
Okay.
And but before she left, I had
Okay,
proposed
started.
to her.
Okay, started. But why I'm asking this question, because it's quite interesting, and let's get to understand this sort of relationship, which some people have the opinion that this should not be condoned in a tertiary institution, and you have a case of a similar one. So I'm that particular about it, and that's what I'm asking.
I understand.
Yeah.
I know that the people who talk about harassment talk about say that it is unethical for a lecturer to ever have any feelings for the students. I don't think that they are being human.
Oh.
Truth of the matter is this: it would be wrong for a lecturer to take advantage of his students.
Okay.
But you cannot say that simply because this one is a student and the other one is a lecturer that they are no longer human, and that they could not have mutual feelings for each other, which could be domesticated properly. I think the quarrel should be with how one goes about it. When I decided that this one was one I was interested in, I talked to her and allowed her all the time she wanted in the world to take her decision. And because both she and I are strong believers in God, we took it to God in prayer independently. And it was taking her a long time. And thank God that God loved me much to go to her and say to her, "Why are you torturing my son? He's been waiting for an answer. Go give him an answer." Okay. And then she came back and said, "Okay, it is fine by her." Now, remember I said I taught her year one. When did we get married? In our final year.
Okay. All right, if you're just joining us, this is Inaugural 100.7 FM, and I have in the studio Professor Ashong, C. Ashong, right here. He's here to talk to us, and we dived a bit away from why he's here to talk to us. At the University of Uyo, yes, we'll be having her 83rd annual lecture, and yes, the prof who would be lecturing on that particular day is ready, or he's right here with us, Professor Ashong. And yes, we talked about him, his family life, and all of that. But let's quickly come back to look at the education, Prof. I actually earlier ruled out your progress to attaining these status. Let's look at it. What informed that drive and the course of study?
Two things. First of all, you remember me telling you that my father was a great lover of education.
So that's like family?
Yes. Okay. The man, I mean, he kept telling me that the things he couldn't do as a man, he thought I should do. And one of them was having a good education. Okay. In 1983, while he and I were seated in a parlor listening to radio, the Cross River Radio then, I don't know what happens now, used to have a litany of obituaries. They will read this person is dead and will be buried on so he survived by blah 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 blah, long list, almost always. And there was this particular one, I don't remember anything about who was involved, but when they were reading the survivors, there was a long list of doctor this, doctor that, doctor this, doctor that. And my father just turned to me and said, "Son, you must get that title." Oh. And I was a year 3 student, an undergraduate. So that sowed the seed
of drive,
ambition to become an academic. Because I knew that getting to PhD, it wasn't going to be, not too many other jobs were available. You had to be an academic. So it sowed that.
At that time, were jobs not available in Nigeria? Or?
No, jobs would be available, but for PhDs, most people will look at you and say, "I beg, go to the university." At least then. Okay. Maybe it's not the same story today. But most PhDs were found in the university, not outside. So that was the first thing that sowed that seed in me. And then, of course, I realized that when I went to school that there were many of these professors of mine whom I admired. You know, if they came to class, they taught as if it was part of their breathing in and breathing out. It was just second nature, as it were. And they had such facility and such expression that I admired listening to them. I remember Dr. Mrs. Emilia Oko. You would ask her a question. She taught us the African novel, yes. You ask her a question on one novel, and by the time she's finished talking, she has referred to 10, 15 others.
Okay.
And the way she used to link them, and the more she spoke, it was as if she was getting charged. I got excited about it. Professor Uno, late now, was another person who excited me about, you know, it was so soft-spoken, so gentle, but he would tell you the things you wanted to know about his program. And then we had this visitor from Unilag, Professor Adetubo, and he taught us stylistics. And the man, he was a chain smoker. He would stand at the door, finish his cigarette, or at least do a good bit of it. And then as he snuffed it out, he walked in talking the thing that he came to talk about. I got excited at all of them. And I decided, oh, it looked like this was the kind of thing I wanted to do.
Okay.
And why this course? I remember the first degree was in English.
Yeah, English, and you switched to communication arts.
Reason was this: not that I wasn't enjoying the stuff I was doing in English. By the way, Unilag offered me admission to do masters in English. UI offered me admission, and I chose to go to UI because I saw.
Was it because of the prestige of the university?
No. Unilag was as prestigious. I mean, it has always been.
Okay.
But UI was going to give me a chance to go into communication. Why did I prefer communication? As a younger person, I used to enjoy listening to radio and watching people on television. I liked listening to people who had a good accent, who spoke English with a fluency and a facility that looked as if it was native to them. And I thought I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be a broadcaster. But then fate had it that, well, do I say fate? God led me to being a teacher instead. And I saw I was enjoying the teaching.
Than broadcasting?
Not necessarily. But at least I didn't have an experience in broadcasting, so I couldn't compare. But I was engaged with teaching, and I was beginning to enjoy it. I loved coming to class. You know, in those early days, I really prepared like those my teachers, and very often coming without any notes, and you know, each time I could take my class for 1 hour from start to finish without having to stammer at any point in time, and being able to explain things. I enjoyed having students ask questions, even challenging questions, because I did it as an undergraduate. We used to read ahead of time and we would come with questions prepared to, you know, challenge our teachers. And those whose classes I enjoyed most were those who allowed us to ask those challenging questions. And who, you know, put us where we belonged. We thought we knew a lot, but by the time they finished answering the questions, we knew we hadn't started. So I enjoyed them. So I told myself I wanted to be like them. So, and I found that I was beginning to enjoy this task. So I said, well, if I can't be a broadcaster, I can produce broadcasters. So that's why I decided to study communication.
Okay, at your master's and PhD level. But still staying with education, let's quickly look at maybe your thesis, because maybe this might have started when you did your master's, your thesis in master's, which is a development communication. Why did you choose that particular path in communication?
Again, I had a teacher in 1979, 80 or thereabout.
Okay.
A Briton. The name used to be David Pallet. I don't know why. I have not had contact with him in these 40 odd years or more. So I can't tell whether he's alive or not.
Okay.
But this man came to class one day. He was a philosopher. And he said he wanted to define the word development. And it took him the whole hour trying to define development. And I got interested.
Okay.
And I asked him a series of questions. And he answered all of them as if he came prepared for me. And from that day, everything about development began to interest me, because I saw that some people use the word in a negative sense, some use it in a positive sense. And the question was, is everything people call development really? And I got interested.
Okay.
And as I went on, I got more interested in development, because I saw that, let me give you one example.
All right.
In this present age, you talked about youthful people. As a baby, I enjoyed sucking my mother's breast for over 1 year, and so did all my siblings. And I found that that is the best thing to do, actually, for a growing child. But we now have people in this age who have children, and from day one almost, they give them the feeding bottle.
Okay. Which was not prevalent back then.
No, I didn't taste anything, not even water, until I was 6 months.
Okay.
Nothing outside breast milk. And that my mother did for all of us, 9 of us, as I said earlier. And it shows today how healthy we are. All my siblings, all of them, to a man, we're all very healthy people. And I realized that it is because of that foundation. And I discovered that people who do this feeding bottle thing think that they are modern. Meanwhile,
they're not.
I think that they have lost it.
But don't you think that that's development for them?
It is wrong to imagine that is development if it does not add to the well-being of the person.
Okay.
Breast milk certainly does better for a child than the bottle. And therefore, if you are taking something that is worse off than the one which is better and which is cheaper and which is safer, then you cannot call the outcome of it development.
Okay. All right. This is Uni 107 FM, and we are still in the studio having Professor Ashong right here talking to us about developments, especially with communication. And he has explained explicit what development and how and why he chooses to deal and stay with development in communication arts. Prof, let's look at development, especially in the education sector. I know that more will be dwelt on at the inaugural lecture, but let's look at development in the educational sector, especially with our tertiary institution in Nigeria, government-owned tertiary institution. I want you to compare and contrast back then when you were students of a tertiary institution in Nigeria, government-owned, and now, in terms of development.
I wish I were not this involved. Each time I talk to my students about our undergraduate days, which we thought had begun to go down at the time. By the way, I got my first degree in 1984.
Okay.
When I talk to them about the kind of life we lived as undergraduates, they never accept that I'm talking about Nigeria. Number one, talking about our hostel environment, the fact that as an undergraduate, I never made my bed. I woke up and walked away. Somebody had a duty to clean the room and make my bed for me. Drop toilet tissue when I needed it. Wash the bedding when they got dirty. And on and on and on. That was in the hostel. If we went to the cafeteria, the meals we ate then, if you have to buy the equivalent today as a student, you would either be a spoiled child or a thief, because it won't come easy. And all of that, the highest we paid for one meal was 50 kobo before I graduated. and that's because the Naira was very powerful. And in class, we had manageable classes. There were general courses that were large, but by and large, for departmental courses, you never had to sit one on top of the other or stand at the window and stuff like that. Facilities were a little better than they are today. Our lecturers were treated with some dignity, respected in society, and government related with them with some measure of honor. And because of all that, the lecturers also had an air about them and a disposition which said that certain things were beneath their dignity. For instance, nobody compelled me to buy a book or gave me trash in the name of handouts for exorbitant courses. The most I remember, it would be for our lecturers to hand us material and ask us to go reproduce them for ourselves, which is what I do till today. If you have the opportunity to ask my students, ask them. That's what I believed to be lecturing. And that's because it appeared that a little more emphasis was laid, particularly at the university level, than it is today. Public institutions were respectable. When I was an undergraduate, well, before then, let me talk about secondary school, for instance. I remember that when I was in secondary school, those of us in government secondary schools looked down on people who were in private institutions.
Looked down?
Looked down, I insist, looked down on them.
But now the reverse is the case.
The reverse is the case. Now, when I left secondary school in 1976, I toyed with the idea of going abroad. The reason I didn't go was that every mate of mine told me that that meant that I was not good enough to vie for admission in Nigeria. That's why I was looking for an easy way out to go abroad. And that stopped me. But today, it's a pride for people to be in private institutions or to study abroad. When we were secondary school children, we didn't have much regard for people who came from abroad. Well, if you came from Britain, maybe because we were just out of we respected you. But outside that, you came from America, came from India, and all of those other places, we looked down on you. But today, the reverse is the case. And what's the reason? Because, number one, government does not pay attention to education. Strikes have become frequent and prolonged. And generally, people, even our society, does not have much value for education. We think the fatter the pocket, the better it is. Lecturers are paid poorly, even though some people out there think they are paid very highly. And all of that put together has vitiated the quality of what the educational environment is like. So this has hurt us very badly.
Okay. All right, Prof, still staying with education, because I know that this is really, really important. Let's look at, because you're talking about development, we'll go through to the theme of the inaugural lecture, but let's look at development, and let's look at someone going to school. The purpose is for development, you know, for a better future, and looking at our youths right now. But a lot of people have been of this theory that Nigerian graduates, especially in tertiary institution now, are just graduates by paper, but there's nothing like human development, you know, what they say in learning and in character. It's rare you see in a Nigerian graduate as of today.
Well, I don't think that it is fair to blame the university system alone for whatever the observations are. Truth of the matter is that society itself does not set much store by character and does not have much value for morals and morality. We respect people based on the size of their pockets. And if somebody is rich, we don't ask how he came by all that he has. We give him chieftaincy titles, and worse still, even in church, make them elders when they are not born again. Sorry, I don't know if you believe in being born again, but I do. Okay. And I know it is scriptural. Right. So the trouble is not with the university. The trouble is that the society does not have its value system right. And as long as the university is part of that society, you cannot expect it to be in isolation. So until we are able to focus, and it's one of the things I criticize in my lecture, which I won't go into, we should have a national philosophy which we pursue very well. You hear people talk of the American dream. If it comes to communication, they are so libertarian in attitude. But in our own case, it's difficult to describe, and I won't go further than that. Don't ask me more questions on that. Because we need to talk about that at the lecture.
Okay. So, yes, quickly, hopefully we'll try to see if we can open up our phone lines, but let's tell you that something will be happening in the University of Uyo on Thursday, as the University of Uyo will be having its 83rd inaugural lecture, which, yes, we have the lecturer of the department, I think the Department of Communication Arts, Faculty of Arts, University of Uyo, yes, who will be doing justice to that particular inaugural lecture. And the theme for that inaugural lecture is the mainstreaming development communication for national development. And yes, that will be taking place at the 1,000-seater capacity auditorium at the main campus of the University of Uyo. And the University of Uyo community invites everyone to be part of that particular inaugural lecture. But Prof, quickly, the inaugural lecture, what are we to expect?
Well, as you said, the topic is mainstreaming development communication for national development. We'll be talking about what constitutes national development. We're talking about what is development communication. We're talking about how to make it, to extend focus on it, and how to make it a mainstream issue in our national experience. Reason being very simple, that development is something that we all crave, and unfortunately you can't really have proper development unless it is accompanied by proper communication. Communication is a great facilitator. It helps people to understand exactly where you are heading and how you want to get there, and it helps you also to evaluate what you've done and things like that. We have details which I don't think is right to go into right now. But that will be it. We'll be talking about making development communication more prominent than it is today. We'll say what our views are as to why it is the way it is, and I believe as a person that our development has been stunted and slow because we have not attached sufficient importance to development communication. So it will be my task to try and get us to understand how we can make it more prominent and to show us what we stand to gain if we do.
Okay. All right, Prof, the time again for the inaugural lecture?
Time is 3 p.m.
Okay, 3 p.m.
Yes, but it will be advisable to get there before 3.
Okay, and with your face mask right there.
Yes.
Okay, yes, this is to invite the general public to attend the inaugural lecture, which is on Thursday, this week's Thursday, August 26, 2021, 3 p.m. At the 1,000-seater capacity auditorium right there at the main campus of the University of Uyo. My name is Jimmy Jackson. I had the pleasure of hosting the lecturer for that particular inaugural lecture in the person of Professor Ashong. Ashong. Thank you, Prof, for coming around to talk to us.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you for listening.
All right.
We hope to see you there.
Okay. All right. That's the way we have to call it a wrap on today's special interview. The rest of the programs on Uni 100.7 FM would be continuing right here. My name is Jimmy Jackson. Do have a fun for you Monday. Bye-bye.